You sure it's live? Normally I can see if it's live, huh? Or is it?
Yeah, it's live.
All right, let's roll. Yo, 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 welcome back to the Out of the Box Show. I'm John Wallace alongside my co host, James Luffy. And wow, we're excited to be back. Last week, we slipped up. Life happened. Luffy was feeling a little bit under the weather. Work got to me last week. No excuse. We ain't making excuses here. That's not how we live. That's not how we go about every day. If the LSU football team woke up and made excuses every day, then we'd be in for a long football season. We don't make excuses. We missed last week, and we're going to do everything we can to make up for it this week and going forward. This week on the Out the Box podcast, off the charts. We're going to keep it rolling. The offensive line we're going to break down, and special teams, offensive line and special teams. And then next week's game week. Like, it's crazy to think about it like that, but next week is game week. We have to get everybody ready, including ourselves, for the showdown against Florida State on their home turf. Well, not really, but kind of. Next week, we're going to go over defensive backs and I believe the defensive line. Is that correct, Luffy?
Yes, that's our two we have left.
So we're going to break down the D line and the defensive backs next week, as well as give our season predictions preview and kind of preview the Florida State game. But before we do all that, we got to get through the offensive line and the special teams. And before we even do that, we have to give a shout out to Blaine Loop with Forte Realty. Blaine was texting me the other day. He told me the dates he's going to be up in Baton Rouge for tailgates. And I said, we will be tailgating when you are in town. Blaine is the man. Blaine wants to be your realtor. Make sure to call or text him at 504-858-0031 for all your housing needs. Forte Realty. I'm telling you, remember the name, because they're building something that, like the pyramids of Egypt, or the great empires of history, the Roman Empire. The only difference is that Forte Realty is an empire that's not going to fall. They are going to take care of you day in and day out. Blaine is my personal realtor. Call or text him at 504-858-0031 for all your housing needs. Boot Crew Media as well. The Boot Crew Media Network is on fire right now. Football season is the best time of year. They pump out the Saints content like no other. BootCrewMedia.com for all of your Saints, LSU, sports, pop culture, you name it. Boot Crew Media's got it. BootCrewMedia.com and on social media at Boot Crew Media. All right, Luffy, it's good to be back with you on the Out the Box show. Like I said, you were a little under the weather last week. I was having a tough week at work. That's what happens. Life kind of happens, and like we said, we're not going to make any excuses, but we were able to make it out to LSU football practice on Saturday. It was quite a scorcher. Luckily, we were able to sit inside in the air conditioning for a little bit, and we got to see some things we need to know firsthand about this LSU football team. Luffy, give me your takeaways from Saturday's practice.
Yeah, so I mean, like you've heard on the radio so far, the practice wasn't really what Brian Kelly said. I don't know if they were running late. It was you've heard every media member, I'm sure, complain about this already. I'm not complaining. I'm happy we got to go, but it seems like they didn't scrimmage as much as he said. We saw the first team maybe do 2 series, wasn't that many plays. The second team came out there, and then I think the third team may have run more than anyone else. But they really drilled for the most part of practice, and you know, kind of hard to watch the individual drills. There's so much going on at once, but I would say that we looked thin overall, especially when we got to team period, just with a lot of guys out with injury. But the quarterbacks looked sharp, the receivers looked fast, the offensive line, you didn't really notice them because they were really solid in my opinion, and we'll get to that with our O-line preview. But it was still a fun day to go out there and see it. Brian Kelly's practices are organized and they're efficient, and overall, I think that it was hard to learn much from that. And this week is really when they start to get out there and prepare hard for Florida State.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is interesting whenever you go step into a practice as opposed to most of the time when we're watching football, it's on TV or even in the stadium. It's a live game atmosphere. And when they get to the team part, it kind of more so feels like that. But even still, at a practice, it is hard to, like you said, Luffy, tell how good a receiver is going to be based on a go route that it's just a quarterback being snapped a ball or handed a ball and the guy goes long. It's hard to, like you said, also, it's hard to tell kind of what's going on. I mean, you look over at one drill and then all of a sudden you hear guys like clapping and, for a guy that had a good carry or a good route or whatever. And there is a lot going on, but you're right. The efficiency, the Brian Kelly factor of it all, you can definitely tell makes a difference. Like they're disciplined. They know where they're going. Like, I was just amazed at how these guys know where to go every 5 minutes because they switched to a new drill. I think the timer was set on 5 minutes. So overall, yeah, I mean, we'll get to some of the guys that stood out. We'll get to kind of our takeaways, I guess. But overall, always cool to go, see behind the curtain of what actually goes on to prepare a football team of this magnitude for a season that we're about to have.
Yeah, and it was fun. We got to go out there. We saw a lot of the old players, and it was up in the stadium club. We can kind of go inside and out, and it was the team. It is impressive how they are able to accomplish a lot in a somewhat short period of time. Even though the practice was pretty long. And all the coaches, and to watch Kelly and how he operates going between different position groups. Mainly, he seems to be on the offensive side of the ball when they're in drills, and to watch him coach all the positions is interesting to me. And you can tell, we're thin at some positions. It's obvious that we're thin at cornerback. That was something that stood out at practice, and I think that some of those guys did a solid job though, and stepped up. And Sage Ryan was out playing that outside corner position until he got hurt. Brian Kelly did. I'm not sure what he said today. I'm sure he got asked in his press conference today. Let's see. I don't know what he said about Sage Ryan, but he said after practice that it was a stinger to the former players. So hopefully he'll be back good to go because just, how thin we are there. So, yeah, overall,
yeah,
solid, but hard to get a feel with the one-on-one, with the, ones versus ones, how much of the same plays they're running. Mason Smith didn't practice. The two freshmen tight end didn't practice. So Jackson McGowan was running. I could be saying that wrong. Was running with the second team. And Mark McAway and Pimpton did not practice. So, yeah.
Yeah, Luffy, two things that you said that I kind of want to go back to. One, like you were telling me as we were watching the practice how Brian Kelly is so engaged and actually walks up to players and coaches them. Like it's a contrast between some coaches that are typically just rah-rah guys and run around and all that. Like you can actually see that he's knowledgeable and can actually coach during a practice. The other thing was when Sage Ryan went down, these practices are so efficient that when Sage Ryan goes down, they literally they were in the team scrimmage point of practice, and they just flipped the scrimmage to the other side of the field, like same yard line and everything. Everybody knew where they were going. There was purpose to everything that they did. There was a rhythm that they followed, and it's like it almost makes you feel good knowing that this team knows how to just adjust and move on. At times when things might go wrong, like for example Sage Ryan going down. like you said, a stinger. Hopefully, he'll be good to go. I think
Yeah,
overall, like you said, the two highlights were efficiency and just you watch the drills and all that, but at the same time, you're really looking forward to the team stuff. So overall,
yeah,
good day.
and we'll get to a lot. We'll get to a lot more about the practice as we kind of get into the O line and special teams because some of my takeaways were there. I guess Neighbors and and Mason were really the two guys. Mason Taylor, the two guys that Jaden was targeting. Right. It seems like those are going to be the two guys that lead us in catches, and you're going to see a lot of passes to the tight end. I think those are two players that it's absolutely crucial for them to stay healthy. I did really like what I saw from the freshman receivers, whether that be Kai Prawn, Jalen Brown, Sheldon Sampson, and and Kyle Parker, who we're about to talk about, who looked good as well. So excited about that group overall, and yeah. So secondary, Zy Alexander did well in team holding up against Malik. So that was good to see.
Yes. All right, Luffy. I think now would be a good time. Let's get into the O line depth chart. Is that okay with you? You
Yeah,
mentioned that there wasn't much going on from them during the practice because they were doing so well. Like they're the most underappreciated position on the field when you have quarterbacks and guys like Malik Neighbors. Making spectacular plays. They're the guys in the trenches day in and day out.
yeah, and
So let's kind of run through the line.
yeah, and to speak to that, the frustration, you could see it from the defensive line. At one point, Guillory, I guess, thought he had a sack. It sounded like he was screaming, sack, sack, sack. Coaches didn't blow the whistle. A lot of times that happens in practice. They're trying to get the guys reps, let the play develop, let Jaden run away and throw the ball. And the next play, I think they kind of got into a little scuffle. He was screaming again, came off, threw his helmet, had to, kind of sit for the rest of the practice. But Brian Kelly had a little talk with him. So that's how kind of imposing the offensive line was. I mean, we'll just start right to left here, and at right tackle you have the sophomore, the rising stud sophomore Emory Jones playing that tackle spot, and then and he was solid. I think he was part of the reason Guillory was getting frustrated, and you could see. And the story that everyone's talking about is that from right to left it was Emory Jones, Miles Frazier, Charles Turner, Garrett Dellinger, and Will Campbell. And what happened is they did slide Emory Jones inside during the first team on a couple of the drives or possessions, whatever you want to call them. And so they slid Jones inside to tackle or into guard, and then Lance Hurd came in and played some tackle. Not for a ton of plays, but you can see that that's something they're testing. You've heard them probably every radio host talk about it by now, but that's definitely an option. I don't see them starting the season that way, but I think week 2, they'll definitely was it Grambling. They'll definitely get him some reps there because I think they think that Hurd is the future at right tackle, and then probably eventually left tackle. But yeah, so Miles Frazier coming back. Let's see what year is Frazier this year, John. So he's got 2 years remaining. So I guess he's a red shirt
junior.
Yeah, red shirt junior. So solid job last year. Kind of got better as the season went along. Split a little bit of time last year, but a solid option there. Gives you some depth. And then Charles Turner was the center coming back for I believe it's his last year.
Redshirt senior.
Oh yeah, I guess he actually technically has another year, but because that might have like a COVID year, John does, yeah. Or a redshirt year. So Turner coming back, for probably his final season. Was out in the spring. Spring looked solid out there at center, and then Dellinger, another guy in his third year, and a guy who looks like a pro and is going to be what we think a really solid offensive lineman. And then you got the all freshman American Will Campbell. You just don't notice him out there because he's great. I mean, he beat Harold Perkins on 2 one-on-one drills. It's just he's a beast. He's not like overly like he is big, not a small guy by any means, but he's not like overly massive. So Lance Hurd he makes Emory Jones look small when he's standing next to him, but he's just athletic. The way he bends, he's able to bend down and fight off ends like the best. Harold Perkins coming around the corner, and that he's just special. And look, we expect a lot from this group, and I think that with Lance Hurd, you have some depth there, and then now running the second team center, which is also interesting, is the freshman DJ Chester from Georgia. And then you got Marlon Martinez, kind of as that swing guard if someone were to get hurt. And then Bo Bordelon, who's in Bo's in his second year after a redshirt year last year, who is someone I think they like at tackle and a Brian Kelly type frame tackle. So you feel good about him into the future. And the freshman O-linemen, they look solid to me. So got some pieces there, and I think it's got to be the strength of this team. If this team's going to excel, it's going to have to be that offensive line that is able to carry us through, I think.
Well, you look at the Florida State game last year, Jaden Daniels was running for his life, right? And that was partially because he was like, he didn't see his first read and he was off. Like he was gone. All he knew how to do was use his feet. So you have this pretty much all returning linemen coming back. I really am interested to see how Emory and Campbell in their second year and the rest of the O-line like form a cohesive unit to allow Jaden Daniels or even Nussmeier to sit in the pocket a little bit longer, extend plays, extend drives. Because, at this point last year, we knew it going into the Florida State game that we might be in a little bit of trouble with our offensive line. I think you're going to I think it's going to be a noticeable difference this year. Like you have a wall.
They have Jared Verse, one of the best defensive players in the country, top probably 8 to 10 draft pick, and like you said, the offensive line was so much different structured last year, and that group kind of came together. This group that is out there this year towards the end of the year, but that rapport and being able to practice as that starting group, I think, gives them a big advantage this year compared to last year. The offense, it's one thing. The offense should be comfortable from the start, right? It shouldn't look uncomfortable the first time out there like it did last year. And hopefully, that starts with the offensive line, like you said. So excited about that group. I think it's there's I think there's multiple 34 pros on that offensive line, which is a lot.
Yeah, you kind of broke up there, but one thing I did notice, at the practice they hand out these cards that are color coded. They list what how many years each player has left, what position, their number, and it was really useful. But as I'm looking at this card, I didn't notice this on Saturday. We only have 8 players with 1 year remaining at LSU, and one of those is Jaden Daniels, and the other one's Noah Kane.
Yeah, a lot of those guys, will probably go pro or move on. Whether it's a redshirt year or, they'll be draft eligible. But yeah, that is a good point. I did kind of notice that when I was looking over it the other day. The defensive side's a little bit, different. I think we'll have a good amount of departures, a decent amount of departures on that side. But yeah. a lot of good young talent on this team. I think that's one of the things that stood out. It sucked we didn't get to see the tight ends, the two other young tight ends practice. We'd heard a lot of good things about them. And then part of the reason the offensive line was so dominant was Mason Smith did not participate in the team activity, which was disappointing. I think that I don't know how many snaps he'll play against Florida State. I think that he'll be out there, but will he be playing 85% of the snaps? I don't think so. I think it'll be kind of playing his way into shape as he's coming back from an ankle sprain. So, that's just something else to keep an eye on. But, overall, excited about the offensive line. I think it's almost like with Kelly, there's just a trust factor from what he's done,
Yeah, and we kind of got off on Mason Smith, but it's almost like this feeling of uneasiness, and there's like it seems to me that it's split between LSU fans. Like some people are like, well, if he's going to play in 2 weeks, he needs to be out there practicing, and other people are thinking, well, if it happens again, God forbid, then his LSU career is pretty much done, right? I don't want to say done, but it would look more towards, and I'm not even going to use the word bust, but just like there's so much potential there. So I'm of the mindset, maybe get him a few reps during the Florida State game just to get him in for live game action, but take as much time as you need because we're going to need him once we get into the heart of the SEC schedule.
Yeah, I think he'll practice. They might take it easy on him this week, but I would expect next week, once it gets into game week, that they're pretty full go with him in practice as much as he can because they need him. They need him out there. So that'll be important. We'll talk about the D line next week, but to clean up the offensive line, you got to call. I mean, you have to call a work box. If you need a storage container, you're redoing your house. You need a roll off dumpster. You call Blaine, buy a new house, redoing it. You have to call Workbox. They'll bring a porta potty out there. They'll bring a roll off dumpster, portable office storage container for your furniture. Call Workbox LLC. It's 225-343-4886. Call Workbox LLC. It's 225-343-4886.
That's good.
Special
Gotta
team.
call Workbox.
Look, Aaron Anderson, you could not have ever watched football before. You can look at that person and go, he's fast. Like whenever he's jogging out there, he looks faster than everyone else. He's back there. He was back there catching punts and also returning it. And then I think Kyle Parker was kind of your second man back there catching punts. So I think he'll be the kind of backup option. They both looked fine catching punts to me, John. I don't know if you had any observation on that side.
No, I mean, mine was the same about Aaron Anderson. Like, I was kind of keying on him during the individual drills. Yes, he's fast. And for whatever reason, why it didn't work out at Bama, I don't know really, I guess, or understand. But it feels like one of those situations where it's good for him to be on our side, right? Like you wouldn't want to play against him.
No. I mean, it's just like anybody can tell this kid is fast. He has that playmaking ability. They were able to throw him like some bubble screens and stuff in the team period, and then on like the 7-on-7 period. So I expect him to kind of take off from that position. And I felt like that group as a whole in the return game looked fast to me. Whoever they had back there, Kyle Parker looks real smooth as well. So. And maybe we didn't see some guys back there that would normally catch punts, as Logan Diggs did not really practice. He was in pads. Who else didn't practice from that? Oh, Josh Williams didn't practice. And then Armani Goodwin didn't practice. So I don't know if any of those guys are options back there as well. But as far as kickoff and punt, I think and also the freshmen, obviously, I think everyone's beat this down. But Caleb Jackson had a really good practice, and I think they're high on him. He looks like a complete back. He was running with the second team. Those plays were against the second team. That's just something to keep in mind. But yeah.
Yeah. I, I was initially thinking like, and maybe you can shed some light on this. Do you think, and I think I might have asked you this on the podcast before, but I can't remember what your answer was. Do you think they gave Neighbors any shot to return punts or kicks? I know last year he kind of struggled. It was a really kind of rough go of it. Do you think they're just letting him say, you know what, you're going to be a first round draft pick, go make your money at receiver, and don't worry about returning?
I think he's too valuable at receiver. I think that he's plenty capable of catching punts, and I think that was one of those. It's almost like a thing. It's like a yippee type thing, where it was kind of in his own head. I don't think that I think he's plenty capable of being an electric return man, but I think that you don't want him getting hurt. Like I said earlier, Mason Taylor and Malik were getting most of the targets from Jaden, and they know how important he is to the offensive side of the ball. So I don't think you'll see him back there. Maybe if 3 or 4 guys struggle, then that would be an option. But I don't think you'd see that right away.
Speaking of electric return men, I did not see Skylar Green at the former players practice, but he was there. Shout out Creel. That was me and Creel's favorite player back in second grade. I would have
for Skylar Green. True story.
Yeah, I mean it was you what?
Had a fish named after him, like a goldfish.
There you go. Was the fish green?
I have no clue.
So it was a green fish.
I don't know. I have to ask my mom, but she loves that story. So, yeah. But yeah, I think that, and from that perspective, it's back. Nathan Dibert handled the most of the kickoffs, and Damian Ramos was kicking field goals. Dibert was kicking.
Wait, hold on, Luffy. You're kind of breaking up a little bit. Oh no, man! I think it's your internet that is struggling today. Mine, I don't know if they sent if Cox Communications sent a bullet to my house, but my internet has been pretty on point lately. Are you back with us, Luffy?
Mine hasn't frozen.
If you're not back with us yet, I'm gonna have to start telling some jokes if you're not back with us soon.
Can you not hear me?
I don't think anybody wants that. I can now.
All right, because I haven't frozen and you haven't frozen, so it might be.
You just kind of froze for a little bit on my screen, but you were saying that Nathan Dibert handled the kickoffs.
Yeah.
I assume Ramos is going to be our place kicker, right? And then Bramblett is probably going to be
punter.
Was he the punter last year? Yeah.
Yeah, he'll be the punter again. This is last year, and then hopefully Peyton Todd will take that next step. Slade Roy, your boy Slade Roy, is the long snapper.
Love that name.
Yes.
Slade Roy. Would you want to mess with a guy named Slade Roy?
Absolutely not. Badass. He's a linebacker. I mean, a long snapper, basically a linebacker.
Then you got his colleagues, Jake Davis and Jonathan Ferguson. If 3 guys walk into a bar and they have those 3 names and one of them's named Slade, you're probably going to mess with the other 2, right? I probably wouldn't mess with any of them because they do play football for LSU, but still.
Yeah, it did seem like there was more attention to detail on special teams. They did work it for a while. To be honest, we walked inside, kind of got some cool air and some water and Gatorade, Powerade, thanks to LSU football.
You break it up. Hold up. Call it. You break it up. I need to have my joke book lined up for whenever this type of thing happens because I do have some good ones, but I don't want to have to break them out unless I absolutely have to.
John, I think it's your internet because I hear you clearly and my screen's clear.
Hmm. All right. Well, I think that about covers the special teams. Um, as you mentioned, Luffy, I do like, Brian Kelly talked after the practice, and it was just kind of cool. I didn't realize that the football team didn't do something like this before Brian Kelly got here. Like he did a phenomenal job setting up the entire former players practice. He does a great job in the program. Good guy as well. He actually wants to come on the podcast. We need to we need to make that happen in one way or another. That's on me for not making that happen yet. But no, it's cool to see all these back into one room. I mean, you had Chad Jones, Skylar Green, um, players from the 80s, 90s, early 2000s. You had players from the 60s and 70s, like just walking up in there and shaking everybody's hand. I mean, it's always just cool to see guys that were on the field and were like giants, as you were growing up. Like, I mean, every time you see Jacob Hester, you're like, wow, he doesn't look that big on like the radio or on TV or anything. And then you see him in person and he's huge. So it was just a really cool experience. We saw Zach Von Rosenberg there as well. Always good to catch up with him. We need to get him back on the podcast soon. Maybe I'll do a drill, an Oklahoma drill with him at a tailgate this year. But yeah, just cool to see the former players come back. I think it just kind of blows my mind that they did not have something like that beforehand.
Hester is tiny.
Dude, he's bigger than he looks on TV.
Hester is tiny because he's lost like a lot of his like muscle, like and fat. But Chad Jones is huge, huge. I was not expecting him to be that big.
Yeah, I mean, what I meant is that like Jacob Hester running around on a football field with a bunch of big dudes, he does not look like a big dude, but he is definitely like they're all huge. Like you don't realize how big football players are until you're like standing right next to them, even when they don't have their pads on. But yeah, you're right. Chad Jones, it was like, whoa, we need to chill out. A lot of people forget he was the dreadlocks of doom nickname. And I believe he was a pitcher on the '09 World Series championship team. So definitely cool to see these former guys get back. And Von Rosenberg brought up a good point. He said, the previous year the practice was outside and it was hot outside, and this year they moved it up to the stadium club, like you said. And he said a lot more players are going to want to come now because they found out that it's air conditioned. So I think that's a really cool almost tradition that Brian Kelly has started up the past couple of years, and then Nick Brissett has kind of set up. So, all right, Luffy, any final parting words on the practice or on the O line or on the special teams sections of this football team?
Can you hear me?
I can now.
I don't know if you heard this, but I was kind of saying that it did sound like there was more attention or feel like there was more attention to detail on the special teams, and they are coaching it like each coach is kind of involved in a certain part of it. So
it's the BK. It's the BK effect. Like it really, like you say it and it sounds funny, but it's true,
And that was different than last year though, because last year when we went to practice, gosh, I'm blanking on his name. I don't even want to say it to upset the people. But he ran the special teams period. You could tell there was more people involved in that this year.
Yes. Trust in BK. Year two, he's got to complete the trifecta of year two coaches at LSU. So, all right, I think that about does it for this episode of the Out of the Box podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. We cannot be more appreciative of all of the support. Also, shout out to the Live Better brand. You've probably seen it on social media, headed up by CEO of the Live Better brand, Andrew Larmew. Make sure to hit him up. Live better, live better. Say that 5 times fast. LiveBetterBrand.com. Hit them up. Great merch. They're constantly dropping stuff. They dropped some stuff today for Labor Day weekend. Also, you know what you do during football season, Luffy? Before the game, during the game, or after the game, you go to the House Bar in Tigerland. Get on over to the House Bar in Tigerland. Tigerland is electric. School started, I believe, last week, maybe last Thursday. I don't know when school started, but it started it within the last week. And campus is popping. The first Thursday night of the semester is coming up. A lot of freshmen on campus gonna head on over to Tigerland. Make sure when you head to Tigerland, head on over to the House Bar in Tigerland. Jeff and Casey over there, coolest owners in Tigerland. They got the best pizza, the best Miller Lite, best atmosphere. The house is home. Hit up the House Bar in Tigerland. Also, shout out to our other sponsors, Workbox LLC, Blaine Loop with Forte Realty, and our great supporters at the Boot Crew Media Network. Thank you guys so much for listening. Next week, we are going to hit up the D line and the defensive backs. DBU, best for last. We're going to break it all down and give our season predictions as LSU heads into game week. Wow, Luffy, I cannot believe it's here. It feels like just yesterday I was on a beach in Mexico and you were up in Omaha, Nebraska, watching LSU baseball win a national championship, and we're already gearing up for another team of LSU's to gear up for a championship run of their own. Cannot be more excited about it, and we are going to be here for all of it.
Yep. I don't know if I'm talking and you can hear me or not. So
you're talking. Tigers. You're talking. I can hear
you. Good.
You. Go Tigers, baby.